California Democrats are playing a little dirty politics by changing election law in order to help Governor Newsom win his recall election. And a little later in the program, we'll welcome attorney and Victory News contributor John Graves. First, let's go to Mike Garofalo with today's top stories. Mike.
Greg, 2 more bodies were found Monday in the debris of a partially collapsed condo tower near Miami Beach, bringing the death toll to 11. Part of the structure came crashing down around 2 a.m. on Thursday. 150 people still remain unaccounted for. Since the building's collapse, emergency personnel have been continually working at the scene, but with each day, the grim reality starts to set in. Families of the missing have expressed frustration at the pace of rescue efforts, which have been in a predicament due to fires and a need to carefully remove debris to prevent further collapse. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Chief Alan Kaminsky assured the search continues with robots, dogs, sonar technology, cameras, and numerous teams, including personnel from Mexico and Israel, involved in that search. And now a sister building to the one that collapsed is showing cracks in its parking garage. While experts say the residents are safe, a volunteer evacuation is in effect there. And just this morning, the White House says President Joe Biden will be visiting the site on Thursday. Well, it's official. The Israeli embassy in the United Arab Emirates is open for business. As the Times of Israel reports, Foreign Minister Yair Lapid today officially inaugurated the embassy in the UAE, as he should have. Lapid hailed it as a historic moment, saying, quote, "We are standing here today because we chose peace over war, cooperation over conflict, the good of our children over the bad memories of the past." But perhaps the most insightful part of his statement, Lapid said, agreements are signed by leaders, but peace is made by people. Greg, back to you.
That's true, and that agreement happened in the previous administration. Yesterday, California Republicans accused Democrats of acting unfairly as state lawmakers passed a bill aimed at moving up Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom's recall. The proposal, now headed to Newsom's desk, would allow the recall to proceed at least 30 days earlier than under existing state law. Democrats hope to take advantage of what they are viewing as a favorable condition for Newsom as the state moves on from the worst days of the pandemic and his related restrictions. This isn't the first time Democrats have played dirty in California. Democrats previously lengthened the recall process when California State Senator Josh Newman faced a recall election in 2018, with the election date being pushed back to match the 2018 primary, a move seen as favorable to a Democratic turnout. First, it was Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis sending law enforcement personnel to Texas to help with the crisis at our southern border. Now, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is also ponying up some resources to help out the state of Texas. The governor posted this tweet yesterday saying today she's sending 50 National Guard troops to help secure the border amid the crisis started by the policies of the Biden administration. I want to bring in attorney and Victory News contributor John Graves. John, so many things in the news today, from the terrible tragedy with the building all the way to our border and all things in between. Your thoughts?
You know, the border is the one that really stands out to me, Greg. You now have 5 states. You had Idaho, Iowa, Nebraska, Florida, now South Dakota, all sending 25 to 50 people just to Texas just to protect the border. It's a massive issue, huge uproar for the vice president not coming, and she just keeps glossing over it, saying, well, I've been there many times. Well, I've come. It's always been the plan. And when Trump, who comes tomorrow to the border, announces it, then all of a sudden she comes, but she doesn't even go to the border. She goes to a patrol office in between. And breaking news, if you will, the Supreme Court of the United States just handed down shortly ago an opinion saying that you can retain people at the border if they claim that they're going to be persecuted when they go back. So the border is a massive issue, Greg, across the political spectrum, and it is an absolute mess. The church is the one that needs to wake up about the humanitarian aspect of this and the security aspect of this.
You know, and to their credit, the Biden administration has been accused lately of not going to Florida to view the towers there, the building that fell, and I'm glad they haven't. That's still an ongoing active recovery site, and that would just get in the way of that. Okay, moving on. What about this with California? California, this is why people want election integrity. They're going to change.
I know.
the date.
Yes, and here's what I would say. A lot of people say election fraud. I would even use the term illegal irregularities, because what's happening is not just software problems that now are needing to be audited. Only in a few places is that happening, old-fashioned fraud or retail fraud. But look at all the ways they change the laws, how you can vote, where you can vote, when you can vote, if it helps their side. And so clearly that's what's happening in California. The governor's in trouble. And here's the crazy thing. It's the far left and the far right that are both upset with him. The Christians that got shut down in their churches and had to sue just to worship. People are upset, but they're trying to protect their own. It's obviously Nancy Pelosi's nephew. And so they got a lot of political clout and power in California.
That's exactly right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that as that moves forward. California, it's in your hands what you're going to do no matter when the date is. All right, John, I'll bring you back here in just a moment. Let's go back to more headlines with Mike Garofalo. Mike?
Greg, Fox News host Tucker Carlson is accusing the Biden administration of using the NSA to spy on his show.
But it's not just political protesters the government is spying on. Yesterday, we heard from a whistleblower within the U.S. government who reached out to warn us that the NSA, the National Security Agency, is monitoring our electronic communications and is planning to leak them in an attempt to take the show off the air. Now, that's a shocking claim, and ordinarily we'd be skeptical of it. It's illegal for the NSA to spy on American citizens. It's a crime. It's not a third world country. Things like that should not happen in America. But unfortunately, they do happen, and in this case, they did happen.
So as you just heard, Carlson said that a whistleblower from inside the federal government informed him that the NSA was monitoring his online communications. The Fox News host then confirmed that the whistleblower was able to push past Carlson's initial skepticism by telling Carlson's staff about a story they are working on. Carlson has filed a Freedom of Information Act in an attempt to find out exactly what information has been collected about his show. Well, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem isn't pulling any punches when it comes to voicing her displeasure with the Biden administration's refusal to allow fireworks out Mount Rushmore in just a few days on July 4th.
Hi, everybody. I'm Governor Kristi Noem. We're here at Mount Rushmore today on Sunday morning, and it's raining. It's a beautiful day. I really wish that we were able to have fireworks here this year. Probably not going to happen because of the Biden administration, but look at all the wonderful people still enjoying this monument to history. So hope you're getting ready for a wonderful Independence Day celebration of your own, and welcome to Mount Rushmore.
After turning her back on the American flag and protesting the national anthem, Olympic hammer thrower athlete Gwen Berry is facing calls from Republican lawmakers to have her removed from the team.
We don't need any more activist athletes. She should be removed from the team. The entire point of the Olympic team is to represent the United States of America. That's the entire point. Okay, so it's one thing when these NBA players do it. Okay, fine, we'll just stop watching. But now the Olympic team, and it's multiple cases of this. They should be removed. That should be the bare minimum requirement. Is that you believe in the country representing.
But the congressman from Texas wasn't the only one calling for an end to Berry's antics.
I don't think it's too much when athletes are competing to wear the Stars and Stripes, to compete under the Stars and Stripes in the Olympics, for them to simply honor that flag and our anthem on the medal stand. If Miss Berry is so embarrassed by America, then there's no reason she needs to compete for our country.
Exactly.
She should be removed from the Olympic team.
Now, after the ceremony, Berry, who earned a spot on the U.S. Olympic hammer throwing team, said she felt she'd been set up after being told the anthem would play before medalists walked out to the podium for that award ceremony. Greg, back to you.
All right. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper has vetoed a Republican proposal to restrict women from getting an abortion because of the race or sex of the fetus or a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome. Abortions based on sex selection are already banned in North Carolina. The bill would have fortified the existing law by adding a mandate that would require physicians to complete a form with signed confirmation that an abortion was not wanted because of a fetus race, sex, or Down syndrome diagnosis. Republicans backing the measure said it would ensure disabled people wouldn't need to pass a genetic test in order to be born. Governor Cooper cited privacy concerns, arguing the bill would have made it difficult for patients to get the medical information and have honest conversations with their doctors. Following the governor's decision, the conservative North Carolina Values Coalition called for state lawmakers to override Cooper's veto. Most Americans do not appear to be on board when it comes to the controversial concept promoted by some on the far left that the United States is fundamentally a racist country. And in New Hampshire, when Governor Chris Sununu signed his 2-year budget recently, he banned so-called divisive teachings known by some as critical race theory. And as the Epic Times is reporting, the state's $13.5 billion budget established a voucher-like education freedom account. With the account, families can funnel their state aid to cover the cost of private schooling or even homeschooling. Good idea. John Graves, I want to bring you back in on this. Let's start, if you would, with Tucker Carlson. He began reporting about the January 6th, and that it appears that there were FBI operatives inside there. I kept wondering, John, why did they always refer to January 6th as 9/11? And then I realized it's because we changed the way we surveil terrorists after 9/11. Now we've defined terrorists as somebody else other than Middle Easterners. Your thought?
That's exactly true. I'm glad you start with that story, because that's one of the most deeply troubling when the government state, the police state, is getting so oppressive that they're not just surveilling and spying on American citizens, but it's American citizens who call in to question them or just show up. There was today a Texas lieutenant that was fired by the sheriff for attending that January 6th. Never went inside the Capitol, just went to hear the speech of the President of the United States and lost her job for it. And so there is a real, you can call it persecution, you can call it harassment, you can call it a political state. It's a propaganda agenda to shut that down. And here's the scary thing. Tucker Carlson didn't even believe this story. People say a lot of things. You have to vet everybody, right? Trust but verify. And what scared him was that they could only know what they knew by looking at his text and his emails, which means they're literally spying on him, just waiting for a got you moment. And can you imagine if the tables would have been turned in the last administration where President Trump was spying on his political opponents? It would have been the top news story in the media. This is kind of getting buried because Tucker Carlson is one of the very few voices that's calling out the hypocrisy of this current administration and their very leftist Department of Justice.
Love him or hate him, he's just seeking truth, and I respect that. Yep. Here's the thing. Joe Biden talks about the most existential threat besides global warming is white supremacists. Name who they are. Who are they? Define it.
And that's the thing. And one of the last stories was critical race theory. You've got even a really left-leaning state, New Hampshire, blocking this. What critical race theory is kind of like BLM. It's the modern-day KKK, but it's politically correct and protected by corporations and the mainstream media. And the reason for that is because there's not what you're talking about. There's not an overwhelming amount of actual evidence of racism. So what do you have to do when you want to keep your story going to keep people imprisoned? And it's not a plantation on the ground. It's an economic plantation where you need the government. So if we can't find real racism, what we're going to do is we're going to manufacture that everybody's racist. The whole system is racist. And think about that, how that it hinders people who are created by God in God's image to do whatever God tells them to do. And in this country, you see it over and over and over. Some of the people that are now billionaires because of this country are complaining that they're not free in the streets, which is nonsense. You've got Olympic athletes who are getting on the stand, paid by the United States, funded by the United States, and then hating the United States. If you hate it so bad, move to one of these communist countries and see how they treat that. They would never tolerate it. That's the thing, is the very thing they hate is what's protecting their right to speak.
Yeah, when you put on the uniform, it says USA on it. When you wear that, you are representing everyone in this country, even the ones you don't like. Right. You represent every single person in America. I remember the Miracle on Ice and in the Winter Olympics and the chants of USA. And now to have Olympics ruined by racism is a horrible thing, John.
or even have Olympics ruined by false racism, by accusations of systemic racism or all this other nonsense. Can you imagine Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook having one of his chief C-level executives keeps being paid for by them to go out and promote hate of his company? He would never tolerate that. He would fire them. They fire people who leak their leftist agenda. They're very open with it. We fire anybody who does that. They would never tolerate this. I don't know why the United States of America does.
And every single day,
other countries don't.
Every single day, people are coming into this country on our southern border, Venezuelans in particular lately, because they want to come to a racist country. No, they know the truth and they want to be here. John, thank you so much. Be back to you in just a moment. Mike?
According to former President Donald Trump's personal lawyer, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office does not plan to bring criminal charges against Trump in his first indictment, which could come as soon as this week. Former Trump attorney Ron Fischetti said that Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr. indicated that his office will not indict the Trump Organization on charges related to hush money payments to women who have alleged affairs with Trump or to manipulating the value of assets tied to the company. Now, though Fischetti did say that the DA's office may bring criminal charges against the Trump Organization and individual employees in connection to some financial perks that they enjoyed. A beauty pageant contestant has become the very first transgender woman to be crowned Miss Nevada USA.
Congratulations to our new Miss Nevada USA, Cataluna Enriquez. She and her team will go on to represent Nevada at the Miss USA pageant. Live this year in Tulsa, Oklahoma at Paradise Cove Theater, November 29th.
Cataluna Enriquez was named the winner on Sunday at the South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. The 27-year-old biological male beat 21 other biological women candidates to represent Nevada at the upcoming Miss USA pageant in November. Greg, back to you.
Okay, let's bring John Graves. John, we've seen it in sports with that, but now I'm literally speechless. Miss USA Nevada, your thought?
Yeah. It's tragic. You see it in sports. You saw it in the bathroom bill, which ironically the North Carolina governor narrowly defeated a godly candidate that was on the front lines of stopping men and women's bathrooms. And now you see it in beauty pageants. What grieves my heart is there's one thing to be compassionate for people who are same-sex attracted, who have a different lifestyle, who have a different God, don't even worship the Christian God. We have a country that protects those people. But when you begin to unfairly compete, or when you begin to now, all I could think about is the compassion of the other 21 girls on that stage that are sitting there going, what in the world? You can get, manufactured body parts and then compete against somebody. And it's an unfair scale because everybody's trying to push this agenda, this politically correct agenda. And the people who are hurt is what I always talk about. If the church could look at things like this and not just accuse the sinner, throw stones at the sin, but look at the root issue here and who all else it's decimating, that's really what's at stake here. And that's where we got to stay focused, to have compassion on these things, but stand up for the truth. And it's just spiritual blindness, Greg.
Yeah, we're all created equal, and we're supposed to be patriotic. It seems like, and this is what I hear from people when I speak to them, it seems like on every front there's an attack. Everything that should be normal. And even with South Dakota not being able to do fireworks like they do every year at Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, that's right. And the North Carolina story was tragic. You can basically go, oh, it's a boy instead of a girl, and so I want to go ahead and murder the human that's inside of me because I wanted a different gender. And so it's sex selection, it's medical selection, it's other things, and it's tragic because it's spiritual blindness. I remember years ago, Greg, when I was studying world religions before I became a follower of Christ. And I remember studying Hinduism where they were starving to death in India, but there were cows right next to them and they wouldn't get up and eat. And I thought, wow, I've never thought about that, like spiritual blindness. Now, 30 years later, I'm looking at our nation and going, how many different things are spiritual blindness? Whether it's abortion issues, false racism claims that you try to judge and condemn a whole group of people based on the color of their skin, which is the opposite of what we're all trying to fight. And then this story with the gender confusion. It's tragic. It's one thing to give people equal rights or equal protection in the law. It's a completely different thing when you start distorting everything that's out there. And it to me is a devastating spiritual.
Well, equal is the principal word there. That's what's in our founding documents, that we're all created equal, endowed by God with certain inalienable rights. Equal is not the same thing as what's happening now, where
That's
you
right.
have
and
equity.
here, that's right. Equity is not the issue, is the same thing as justice or truth. And one of my mentors, who's a brilliant, one of the top constitutional lawyers in the whole nation, he pointed out that our founding was on the principles. The founding of the nation was 1776, and there was all kinds of debates about different things, and they didn't agree on everything. But it was the idea that all men were created equal that we fought for, and then we went and fought a war for it. So if all whites are racist or supremacists, hundreds of thousands of them died to free people who had darker color skin than them, that were many of them African descent. And no one wants to talk about that. The country isn't perfect, but the country is the greatest country that's ever lived, that will fight within itself for the free principles of equality and justice and fairness for all people. And now they're trying to distort that and destroy it again by why do they attack and what do they attack? It's the foundations of the nation, and say, oh, well, it wasn't perfect. Let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. No, it wasn't perfect, but name any other nation in the history of mankind that continues to fight for things that are right in its founding ideas.
And I will submit this to you then, counselor, that Jesus was slain before the foundation of the world, meaning the principle was there. It had to be walked out. And we have to stay with our principle, our founding principle. In God we trust.
And
real quick,
and
10 seconds.
If I could sum up 1 Timothy 2:2, pray for all those in authority and all those who are influencing.
Right. John Graves, thank you for being with us today. And of course, I want to thank you for watching.
Enjoy.
We will return later this evening at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central Time. Make sure you join us then. Tim Fox will be with us from the border here in Texas. The world reports the problems. We do too, but we also give you the answer. And that's the difference. Whatever is born of God overcomes the world. And this is the victory that overcomes the world, our faith. 1 John 5:4. You have to stay in faith. God bless you. We'll see you later this afternoon. Bye-bye for now.